My name is Clay Risen, and I am a co-founder of Bourbon Lore, and I'm also a writer and a all-around whiskey fan. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and even though whiskey was going through a pretty low period in the 80s and 90s, it was kind of everywhere around me. So it's sort of a given that when I grew up, I would also enjoy whiskey. So it's what I did, and just really fell in love with it in a way that I probably didn't expect that I would. It's not just the flavor and the palate, but the stories and the history and the heritage that really spoke to me from relatively early adulthood. I went into a career in journalism, and one of the nice things about being a journalist is if you're lucky, you get to write about things that interest you. And so at the same time that I was getting into whiskey, writing about whiskey, bourbon and rye in particular were becoming more popular around the country. And so I was able to kind of surf that wave through articles, through books, and now through Bourbon Lore. One of the things that really fascinates me about American whiskey is not just the history of whiskey making itself, but the way that it loops in with so many elements of American history. And when I write about whiskey, what I really enjoy is looping together both the stories, the history, and the people, both historical and today. Some of the greatest people I've ever met are in this world, and so it's a lot of fun to interview them, to get to write about their stories, and to bring that to life on the page. One of the things I really love about Bourbon Lore, I get to apply a lot of the work that I've been doing as a freelance writer, as a historian. I'm able to put those toward building something with Bourbon Lore rather than just being ends in themselves. You write a book or write an article here and there. I'm now able to bring that to bear on a project that has bigger meaning than any single thing that I can do. And we're building this together, and it's very exciting. I find the energy at Bourbon Lore to be so enlivening, so thrilling. I think there was a certain amount of skepticism, a certain amount of curiosity when we first emerged, but what we've been able to do has been nothing short of phenomenal. People no longer ask who we are, they ask, what's the latest from Bourbon Lore? And that, I think, is where we want to be. It's where I never thought we would be this fast. When I talk about connoisseurship or elevating American whiskey, I want people to understand that for me, that doesn't mean snobbishness. It doesn't mean elitism. I think one of the important things about American whiskey is it is not those things. That is part of its DNA. It is something to be celebrated by everybody. There is great American whiskey available at many price points, and you don't have to be a millionaire to be able to enjoy great American whiskey. We need to appreciate the spirit, not just because it's from America, not just because it tastes great, but because it has so much complexity, so much story, so much nuance and quality that it deserves to be up there with the great noble spirits in the world. And we want to say this is something that deserves to be appreciated in the same way that a fine wine or a fine scotch or a fine cognac should be discussed. It is for contemplation, it is for enjoyment, and the people that make it deserve to be celebrated. And so that's what we're trying to do with Bourbon Lore, is to give it the respect and acclaim that we think it deserves.